Welcome back, everyone, listening in on the link and also here in the audience. My name is still Marcus Henriksson, covering real estate and construction companies at ABG. We're happy to continue with Fastator, an investment company focusing on different types of property segments. With us, we have the newly appointed CEO, Svante Bengtsson. He's been in the company for quite some years, but is new on the CEO post, and also Christopher Strömbäck, the CFO. I'll leave the word over to you guys.
Thank you, Marcus, and thank you for having us here. I'm Svante Bengtsson. Like you said, I've been with the company since 2016, first as CFO and then Vice President, and now the CEO of the company.
And I'm Christopher Strömbäck. I am the CFO of Fastator since the beginning of 2019.
I think I recognize some of the faces in the audience. Welcome back, listening to us. Just for those who are new to the company, I will try to explain a little bit what we do and what makes us different from some of the other companies that we're usually associated with. We were founded in 2011, and the idea is to be an investment company. So we want to move between segments within the real estate business, and there we invest and build real estate companies. But the idea is to look at the broader picture of how the society is developing, find the segments that are unloved and not priced correctly, and then invest in those and build those. We're listed on the Stockholm Exchange since 2 years ago, in the main market. And we have a slogan, it's 1 + 1 is 11, and that's kind of an internal slogan to remind us that we are the pioneers. We're looking at the segments, and we should always try to find not only what everyone else sees currently, but also what's in a few years ahead, what they will see in a few years.
If we look at the financial development over the last couple of years, we can see that since 2018 we have almost doubled our net asset value per share. And currently it is 21 krona and 20 öre per share. However, you can see that there are it's going up and it's going down and going up and down, and it's should be noted that this is value changes on properties which is not cash flow, and also value changes on shares which is also not cash flow. So that's one explanation that the results are not so evenly as the cash flow, underlying cash flow is.
This is, as said, something about a business model. We start with business intelligence, trying to look on the broader perspective on where the society is going. 2011. We started with something that was developed into offentliga hus, where the founders saw that public properties were not in the hotspot. There were long-term leases, difficult to finance, slow-moving tenants, was boring, so to speak. But they saw a great potential, especially since the financing developed more. So they started building this company, offentliga hus, and 3 years later, they joined with the first external investment. So this is how they did. They chose this path to establish a new company in a new segment. And then when the company was a little bit more mature, they brought in external investment, expanded it further. And then when the market saw what we saw of 10 years ago, in this case, then we said that, okay, now public properties, the prices are so high, so we don't see how they could develop more. And then we started looking for an exit. The other option, which we started with Företagsparken, is looking at if there is a smaller property company in a segment that we want to go to, and then we can make an investment if we think that the team there is a correct team. So then we go in and bring in our strategic experience and our contacts with the financing sectors, and then develop the company to the maturity phase. And we have done this with offentliga hus, and we've done this with I lost the name. SBK.
Yes, Svenska Bostadskompaniet.
Yes. So residential housing that we also sold last year.
So few more words on the offentliga hus case. As Svante just mentioned, it was community service properties. Back in 2011, they were traded at 8, 9, 10% yield. Very low prices. Banks actually didn't like to finance such properties, and there were few buyers. And then when we sold the company in 2020, it was the opposite, was very hot segment. And at that point in time, it was 9 billion in property value. We have over those years acquired property by property, and eventually having a quite a decent size property company. And then when just after the IPO, we got a bid on our shares, which we thought was attractive. So we sold all of our shares, and we got just above 1 billion SEK in cash for the sale, which we then have, of course, invested in our current portfolio companies, and those we will talk more about today.
Very important part of our strategic work is the board. We have Björn Rosengren, who used to be the Minister of the Industry. We have Carl Bildt, who used to be the Prime Minister of Sweden. Anders Mossberg, with experience from SEB. Jacqueline Winberg from the new starting, the Avanza, and also from management and recruiting companies. Important to help evaluate the teams we invest in. Helene Tillberg is the newest addition to the board. She joined about 2 years ago, and she has a lot of extensive experience from property facility management companies, so the operating companies like Nordic PM. And Mats Lundberg is one of the original founders, and he has over 30 years of real estate experience. So we have one with exclusive or deep level real estate, and the rest of the board is for the strategic level, how to find the new segments that we want to invest in. And this is where we are today. We have 4.3 billion of assets that we manage, and they are one way to divide them is through real estate companies that are not listed, the listed real estate companies, and holdings with the property management right now. The largest today is Företagsparken and Point Properties and the joint venture Genova Fastator. Then we have the smaller Svenska Kulturskatter and Vrenen. The listed real estate companies, which is Studentbostäder i Norden, you might have heard of this. They focus exclusively on residential for students. And this is one, like Christopher mentioned, this is one of the reasons why the assets has gone down, because we value them at the share price. So what they're traded at, that's what we have in our books. So that's why one of the reasons why we see the decline in substansvärde.
Net asset value.
Net asset value, yeah. And the last company is that we've now seen a little bit more action around is Nordic PM and Natives. We invested in Nordic PM in 2016. They manage properties for a lot of different companies. One of the strategies is that they should be our first choice, but they should not be dependent on our other companies to do their business. So I think we have about 10% of their business today, and we use them very much when we start the companies, because then we have a partner already. We can acquire properties in the segments that we want to go into and form the companies really fast without having to worry about who should take care of them. Företagsparken is a segment of urban company parks. So for you who are in Stockholm, this is Högdalen, Ulvsunda, this type of properties. They've been around since the 50s. They're usually close to the city center. They have a lot of different tenants, and one of these properties could be maybe 10, 20 different tenants, and sometimes it's one or two. Depends on how it's divided. They're self-sufficient. You don't need to. They don't call you if something small is broken, then they fix it themselves, because this is people who are used to work with their hands. They solve problems. We buy them because we think that even though it's short leases, 3 years standard time, usually tenants stay for 15, 20 years, because once you move in, you don't want to move out. It's your little man cave, perhaps, so to speak. And we have them all around Sweden. And we now started to develop this company. We took an investment, not sure if this next page says something more. Yeah, we made an equity issue this fall for 900 million Swedish kronas by Swedish and international investors. We made it on the net asset value per share. So the valuations are current and they're accepted by the investors. They currently have a strong cash position. The investment was made to expand the company. And like you can see, we expanded the last 2 years from about 1 billion to 6.3 billion in asset values. It's a company that's now started to distribute some of the profits. So it's a healthy company. The earnings capacity is increased by about 70% this last year with the last additions in equity. This is 49% of our net asset value, and we hold about 53% of the equity in the total company. So this is one of the companies that are now starting to getting closer to the initial maturity phase, so to speak. So they're building their own organization, and yeah, very interesting segment. And we started focusing on this about 2 years ago when we sold the Offentliga Hus, and this was a very, very good move. This is high yield properties, so they're not beautiful, but they pay very good, so to speak.
And the second largest portfolio company of ours is Point Properties. It's a property company focusing on centrally located properties in small and mid-sized Swedish cities. Typically just by the square in this very center of the town. And these properties back in the 60s, 50s, 60s, 80s looked like on the left on the picture. Then they tore all of those buildings down and instead created the picture in the middle as they look today. And our concept and strategy is to develop these properties as on the picture to the right. It also means that we have during our development we have cash flow properties, because there are tenants in the properties as of today. So they are current properties with good tenants yielding, and then our plan is to build on top of the current building. So we see it as we got a building right sort of for free on the top, because there is typically a parking space on the top, which is suitable for building. In addition to this, we are also trying to acquire properties around those buildings, so that we get as much as possible around the square, and that we can sort of use the different properties, move tenants between them, and optimize the flow between the properties. Currently, we hold 19 of such properties, and they have a total property value of 1.5 billion. And these buildings on top, so we call it the green building rights, and that's because you don't take any new land, because you build on current properties, which we think is as green as it can get, instead of building on outside of the city where there are farmers can do their business, etc. And this company we for a moment hold 100% of. The third largest, but now it's not that big a part of our net assets, but actually only 4%, is Studentbostäder i Norden, which is our only listed holding company. As the name suggests, it's a niche player focusing only on student housing, which is a segment quite popular and quite a few actors in Europe, not so much in Sweden. We are the only larger private company focusing on that segment. It has grown quite substantially over the last years, so it now has 7.5 billion in property value and over 8,000 student apartments in its portfolio. And we hold almost 25% of the shares.
Just something about Nordic PM. Those who follow us saw that we restructured this company, these two companies, into one NPM group, so that they can now work closer together to offer both property management services and facility management services. So property management is mostly for the owner of the buildings, and facility management is usually for the tenants. But it's a very good opportunity to have the same crew, so to speak, to offer make this offer to the same buildings. They have a good extra turnover of using each other as references to sell these services. It's a healthy company. They last year had a turnover of about 350 million kronor. They manage 2.3 million square meters. Our share of their turnover is about 10% for the whole Fastator companies, and they made a 42 million Swedish kronor in EBITDA for 22. We own about 55% of this company, so currently it's a daughter company. So it's a small but a very, very interesting and good company. Just something about our other small up-and-coming, Svenska Kulturskatter. Currently holds 3 properties. We focused on older buildings with Patina, and it's unique properties where you have a long-term hotel or restaurant business going on. And they're currently valued at 172 million kronor. Renen, we own about 43%, and it's a rental apartment in Stockholm and Mälardalen. And Genova Fastator is a joint venture with Genova. It's a property value of 180 million, and we own 50% of that company. And it's, I think we're running a little bit out of time. Is that correct, Marcus?
It looks quite good, so we could quick summary, and then I will move to questions.
Okay, so what are we focusing on now going forward? Well, we're growing our focus segments. Företagsparken, as you saw, is expanding. We're currently working on expanding that as well, also setting the new organization for the company, also going through all the leases. One thing that's interesting with this, like I said, the tenant's been there for 15, 20 years. Usually, you forget to negotiate the lease. You just let it go on. So in many of these properties, they are not up to market leases anymore. So last quarter, they did renegotiations of the leases and managed to increase them by almost 29%. And this is also, most of them are also index regulated. So those contracts that were not renegotiated are increased by 10.9%, which is very interesting. Now we're looking at energy, was very focused on because of the prices, but from our perspective, it's also very interesting or very important to know that the tenant pays what the tenant is supposed to pay. Sometimes when you have a very long relationship with the tenant, you kind of forget to look at that. But we're going through every property that we bring in, we're going through it and make sure that everyone pays what's agreed to. And we're looking, like I said, improve company portfolios. We're looking into them, expanding them. Refinancing is a hot topic on everyone's agenda. Fastator has a rolling bond market. We have a third of our bonds every year, so we're this fall looking to refinance that. And the trends that we see currently is the urban company parks, like I say, industry, or företagsparken. We're bringing in more manufacturing. The last mile distribution is increasing. City center properties. What we see now is a kind of getting back from the e-commerce. People are actually turning back to the physical stores, and also the e-commerce realizes that you need a physical store in order to expose your brand. It's cheap to do it on the internet, but it's also very inefficient. Our store, a concept store, Aktier has a concept store in Stockholm, H&M as well. So these properties are going very well, even the current business. And student housing, of course, we have 80% discount on the share today. We hope that they will see what we see and that the discount will at least get a little bit smaller in the future. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I'll have a few questions, and also if there is any question from the audience, just raise a hand. First off, you mentioned refinancing, and we have a bond maturing in September this year. You have historically you are a very opportunistic company. So looking at your current portfolio, you have Företagsparken, for example. Could you divest part of that, for example? Could we see, since you will develop, hopefully in the future, a lot of new construction in point properties, could you see a strong JV partner coming in there in order to be fully geared for new construction when construction prices decline? Or could you elaborate a bit on the journey to refinancing from here?
Absolutely. You could almost work for us, Marcus. No, it's like you said. What we try to build companies like we would hold them forever. But as an investment company, when we see that there's an opportunity, we're open to divest, of course. With Företagsparken, the strategy is a little bit different from Offentliga Hus. We bring in external investors. We also make it a distributing company. So there is funds coming up with Offentliga Hus. It was more a closed structure. But now we're seeing that this year we divide 100 million almost, and now the income is going up almost 70%. So for next year, we estimate that we can increase that as well. And for the JV partners with Point, that's where we're getting to this point where we either continue or we bring in a JV partner, because now the construction rights are there. The green properties are interesting. Like everyone is now, I don't know if you follow the agriculture sector, but the Länsstyrelsen is turning down a lot of construction wants they want to keep the agriculture intact. So this type of properties and this type of adding is more interesting. So that's with the reference. And of course, we're also discussing with the investors, the bondholders. And we try to have at least by year conversation with them to see where they're at, how they feel about us, and so on.
Running out of time, but one quick last question. Nordic PM or MPM Group now with the organizational change. Could you see, since the property market is in a bit of decline and there's a lot of potential restructuring to come forth and so on, we've seen a strong growth journey for Nordic PM Group in the past few years. Would you say you are more inclined to be able to partake in further growth, or is this decline in the property market more inclined to see Nordic Property Management to have decelerating growth going forward?
We're looking at accelerating. because what we see is that the companies are looking over their own staff, so to speak. So when there's bad times, then you look at minimizing that. So they get more offers now than before, actually. So, and bringing the structure in the right place with a central board to also makes it easier to do multiple sales.
Perfect. Thank you everyone for listening in, and thank you everyone on the floor, and thank you Fastator for joining us today.
Thank you.